Hello. Whoa, look, that works. Look at that. Yeah, find the balance first. Happy Wednesday. Happy NAB conference day. So happy to be here. This is exciting. It's a fun thing to be a part of. So I'm up here today to talk about a handful of things. I'm a commercial photographer. I've been in New York working for the past 16 years. And so I wanted to talk about, as a photographer, what that has looked like for me, where I've come from and where I'm going. And also a little bit about the journey that I'm headed in now, which has been a really interesting one, because over the past year and a half, I've started to dabble in motion, which was something that I never thought that I would do, because I was very firmly, for a very long time, a photographer, and I was happy with that. And I didn't really have any interest in changing, but then it changed. So the other thing that I would call this talk is from photo to video and back again, and I'll circle back on that. But I wanted to cover a lot of different things, and obviously to be up here and show you that I'm slightly qualified to talk about it, I'll go through a little bit about some of my work and what I've been doing over the years, and then we'll kind of go from there. So this is like early days. I moved here and became a photo assistant because, you have to pay your dues and all the rest of it. And so I started as a lowly photo assistant, and I was an amazing photo assistant. I was terrible, but I had no interest in assisting other people. I always knew that I wanted to be the one running the sets and calling the shots, but it was a good time to get my feet and just get a sense of what photography was like in New York and what things look like. I was assisting a lot at Ralph Lauren, with one of their photographers there, and we were doing a lot of their spaces. We were doing product shots and that kind of stuff. And I learned a lot through that time period. Actually, here's the Fujifilm, the GFX camera that I, funnily enough, at Javits Center got my hands on the prototype copy, and they were like, "We think you might like this." And I've been shooting it on it ever since. And that was like a really big leap forward in my photography, because it really took things to the next level. But I ended up moving from being a photo assistant for Ralph Lauren and started shooting for them. And I now shoot around the country, their retail spaces and store experiences. And it's amazing. I get to travel so much with it. I work with incredibly talented people, out in the Hamptons, in Miami, in New York here. But then that led to other clients, doing spaces. And it was an interesting lane to be in. It was one that I never kind of expected to, because doing interior photography is very calm and calculated. And there's two words that anyone who knows me, calm and calculated, probably wouldn't be two of them. But I started broadening the clients that I was working with. Jewelry companies like Graf, watches like Breitling. I started shooting for M&M's, and we've done Mall of America and Disney Springs and Berlin, working on these really cool projects. And the more I did it, the more excited I got by the work. Barbara Sturm here in New York, Lucid Motors, and again, multiple jobs with them around the country. And I started to build up this kind of interesting portfolio of retail spaces. But it was also a matter of, this was great. I kind of stumbled into it, but you also want to shoot what you love, right? And so I love food, and I was like, well, maybe there's something in this. And so I started working with a bunch of food companies, Daily Harvest and Freshly, food delivery services. And it was different, but the same to the work that I was producing. And one of the things I like to think is that my work aesthetically sort of has a bond between it, whether I'm shooting a chicken or I'm shooting a retail space on Madison Avenue. But it was a really interesting kind of diversification of what I was shooting. And I think you guys know, anyone who's been in photography, or in video, there used to be, and I think it's less now, there used to be this mantra of find one thing that you're good at and stick with that one thing. If you're going to be a portrait photographer, be a portrait photographer. If you're going to be a landscape photographer, do that. And I just was not interested in that. That was not, that didn't play to, because I get bored very quickly. I want to try different things. I don't want to be stuck shooting the same thing over and over again. I did a campaign for Patron tequila, started pulling in lifestyle elements, and it kept things fresh. And I think that's like the important thing as creatives is you want to keep things fresh and you want to keep on pushing and trying new things and stepping outside of your comfort zone, you know? So doing beverages, because, you know, food and cheeky cocktail as well, you know, it's a good combination. And I got to say the perks from these shoots are, you know, they're pretty good. I had a pretty stocked pantry. Then started working in hospitality with hotel brands because, you know, I had interior spaces and sort of architecture down, food and beverage program. So I started working with brands like the Aman Resorts, Collective Retreats in Yellowstone, the Beekman Hotel here in New York. And it was a departure. It was different. This was a pride campaign that we did for W Hotel in Mexico City. And again, it was keeping things within the realm of what I did, but pushed it further. And hotels are great. They're very, very challenging because there's a lot going on. They're usually early mornings through to late nights, and it's hectic. There's a lot that there's a lot that goes into a shoot like this. But I love that challenge. And again, I think that's like such an important thing is to keep on challenging yourself and keep on pushing it forward. And so these are some of the clients that I've kind of accumulated over the years. And it's been very rewarding. So again, like stepping outside of your comfort zone. There was a quote that I read recently: diversification is no longer optional. It's a requirement to survive in this industry, right? And that's kind of tough because again, it used to be that you're a photographer and you get a client and you do a job and you get paid really well for doing your job and you go home and you have a martini and that's it. I mean, I still have the martini, but now it's more about hustling, right? You have to build and you have to grow, and it's not enough to stay still. You kind of got to stay, you can't stay in your lane. Which then brought me into exploring the world of video. And this was kind of this was like an interesting departure for me. It happened about a year and a half ago. And I had someone make a connection for me because so many of my clients, well, pretty much all of my clients are from word of mouth or someone I've worked with before and then they've moved to another company or they know somebody. And they said, hey, I want to connect you with my friend. They're looking for someone. I think you'd be perfect for it. I'll put you in touch. So great. Thank you. Love a referral. And I got an email through and I saw like who it was from and all the rest of it. And I was so excited. And it went, dearest Mr. Lewis. I'm like, we would like to inquire about your interest in shooting. I was like, yep. Video for our space in meatpacking. And I was like, yeah, but I don't do video. I don't shoot video. I mean, I meant to, right? It was on the list. I have a list and it's on there, along with like do the laundry and all the rest of it, but I never got to it. And so I was kind of stuck in a situation where I had an inquiry from a really great client that I really wanted to work for, but this shoot was going to be in a month. And I didn't possess the technical skills to pull off a production that they would have needed. And so, I kind of sat under a banyan tree and meditated on it wasn't really, it was like an oak tree in Fort Greene Park and a bottle of rosé. It was great, but I felt really inspired because I had something of an aha moment. I was like, hang on a second. I don't need to know all of the technical aspects of videography, right? This client is reaching out to me because they'd seen my photo work and they said, well, we want that, but moving. right? And they knew that I didn't do video and I didn't have a sizzle reel. They didn't ask for examples of my video. They just knew my eye and that's what they wanted. And I realized that I could reach out to people who were way more skilled and talented than I was in that department, and call on them for their expertise and pull together a production and look at everything that was happening and direct something beautiful for this project that would still be in line with my aesthetic, but moving. And it was a big moment of realizing that this is something that I can call on people for and sort of lead the charge to pull this together. So we pitched and got the job, and I was like, okay, now I really got to pull this off because it's happening. And I got to work with an amazing crew of people. I had a super talented DP. We rolled in like all cylinders firing, and I stepped into this role as a director, and it was like stepping into a second skin. It was beautiful, honestly. And everything went brilliantly. And I learned so much from that experience that it is possible to do more than you think you're able to do, right? Because sometimes we get stuck and we put ourselves in a box and we're like, yeah, this is what I can do. And that's about it. But it's not. It's really, really not. We ended up getting hired to do, I think, 18 more projects for that client over the course of about 14 months. So this is a little bit, of what we did. If it will play with audio. No? Let me see if I do this. Hey! So that was kind of what kept us busy. That's kind of what kept us busy, and it was incredible. And when I look back on that very first shoot that we did, to where we are now, it's incredible the sort of evolution that we've gone through. Because obviously we showed up with everything on that first day, on that first shoot. We had every type of gear you could possibly imagine. We had every person that you could imagine. I had a grip. My grip had a grip. And so over the shoots, we've been able to sort of streamline the process and make it into something that's a more manageable workflow. And also we're traveling, Honolulu, Dallas and Miami and Boston and kind of all over the country, Vegas. And so we've got it into this really great pocket, and we can pack up, and it's me and my DP Gabriel Stanley, who's in the audience today. And our AC, and we just, load up the Delta luggage carousel with our gear. We've got it down to 9 cases, which is pretty good. And off we go, and we get it done. And it's so seamless now, but we keep growing, right? And we keep evolving. But the same thing rings true from that very first shoot. Every time we do this, is that this still looks like my work, right? From the way that it's framed, to the way that we light it, to the way that I'll then take it through editing to piece everything together, and the sequencing, the music that goes with it. It's a consistent voice, even though it's video. I'm coming from photo. And I think that's a really important thing to remember, right? Is you don't have to lose your voice just because you're trying something different. You know, at the end of the day, it's your eye that makes you who you are. And it translates. Trust me, it translates. So we recently did a project for a luxury French skincare brand in Boston called Biologique. And something happened with them, which I had been kind of in my head working towards, was I wanted to do what I call the full circle approach, which is to do both photo and video for our clients, combine those things together and be able to offer a kind of full package. And it also comes down to like, how can you capitalize on your opportunities, but maximize your value to your clients? Because if we get a lead, if we get a client, if we get a job, that's fantastic. But how can you grow that? How can you make it bigger? But also, what's going to make that client keep coming back to you? Like, what's the value add? What can you give them that's like, well, we have this new project coming up. Of course, we have to call Simon, right? So we came in, did photography for them. It was a really cool space. And they were kind of thrilled with the photo element of it. And then we did a video. So again, these two worlds, they kind of mesh, right? The photos and the videos, when you look at those on a website, they all make sense. They kind of look and feel the same. And that's a great thing to be able to offer people. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to encapsulate their brand aesthetic through your eyes. But so if you can keep that consistent, then you sort of hit the nail on the head. And we've already been commissioned to do the next project for them, which is great. So a little bit on gear. You know, obviously we're at a great place to talk about gear. I'm not a huge gear technical person, right? I'm just not. There are people out there that know way more than I do about all of these things, but you know, I know what I know, and I know what I like, and I know how to use it. But yeah, so there's so much that you can see here. I'm actually pretty excited because this Friday, I'm doing a shoot for a client in Williamsburg, and they want, again, like the photo video thing. But it's a friend of mine. It's a contact of mine who's referred me to some really great people. So I kind of owe her a favor. And I was like, look, I can do it. The budget's not really there. I'm like, I can do it, but I'm not going to be able to bring in my full production. It's just like literally not possible. I was like, let me like look into this. Let me see what I can do. And so I actually had a chat with the guys at Fujifilm. And I'm taking their new GFX, the 102. I don't know if you guys have played with that. But it does like incredible video, but it also does photo and you can switch between the two. And so I'm taking that out on this shoot on Friday, and I'm going to, for the first time, step in to the role of cinematographer, I guess, which is going to be exciting. It's going to be new. And so I've spent a bunch of time with these guys going through and asking them questions about stuff because, you know, like I said, there are people that know way more. And And I've had the GFX for so many years, and I have never pressed the record button on that video. Just haven't done it. I'm going to now. But you know, these cameras that we have, this gear that we have, they can do so much. And there's only so much that you can learn. I mean, there are some people that are in the audience here, who will know every button and dial, but you don't have to, right? Know what you need to know, and then know that if there's more, there are people that you can turn to for help. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about this shoot. And we'll see how it goes. And also because we're talking about commercial photography and how to enhance it and all the rest of it, one thing that I have to bring up, and I actually heard it at a conference, a couple of years ago, and it kind of stuck in my head. It was Porter Gale wrote a book on this called Your Network is Your Net Worth. And I want to speak on that because so much of what I've achieved throughout my career has come from the network that I've built. And I'm talking like back when I was a photo assistant with junior assistants that worked at Ralph Lauren, for example, you know, and we're all like young and beautiful and thought everything was possible. They're now the heads of departments at different companies. And because we kind of came up together and we stayed in touch and we built these relationships that were, you know, they were genuine. They weren't based on like a, hey, what can I get from you? Right? Because we didn't really have anything to give, kind of starting at the beginning. But if you're a good person and you do a good job and people like working with you, they'll bring you with them, and your network will grow and grow and grow, and you just never know. And so, you know, it's this phrase, it's so conferencey, right? It's such a conference phrase, like your network is your net worth. Okay, but it's actually true. It's actually true. So one word of advice I would have is, you know, speak with people in your industry. Speak to people here. Speak to the person next to you in case, you know, you don't know each other. And stay in touch. Build your network because it leads to really, really beautiful things. I promise you this. So some of the challenges that I've come up against, learning to let go of control, a little bit of a control freak here. And it was when I made that decision to let other people into my world that I was able to grow my world more than I realized, right? But if I hadn't have let go of control a little bit, it wouldn't have happened because I would have tried to keep everything under my little bubble. So like call on the expertise of other people who know more than you do. It's okay. Accepting that we can't do it all. And they sort of both go hand in hand because there's so much that we can achieve. And it took me like a long time to realize that we can achieve way more than we think that we can and what's possible. But you just got to give it a go. And then the other part of that is realizing we can actually do more than we think. It's like, don't sell yourself short, because I didn't realize a year and a half ago that being a director would be a great fit for me, but it was, and it's led to so many incredible things. The Rolex, supercut, I call it a supercut, cause I hate the word sizzle. People are like, oh, sizzle reel. I'm like, what are we off to a barbecue? So it's a supercut. I'd spoken to my editor. I'm like, hey, I would really love to pull something together for this presentation. Can we go through all the footage and sort of cut something together? He's like, yeah. And it never happened. He got busy. He got pulled away on projects. And I was like, I really need to get this done. And so Sunday morning I woke up and I was like, well, I mean, it's got to happen. So download Premiere Pro, did a 10-minute tutorial on that. I'm like, oh, that's the cutter tool. And this is the move around tool. And I spent my Sunday with a coffee at my computer, editing together this cut, picked a track for it, sort of sequenced everything out. And at the end of the day, and I sort of progressed from coffee at that point. At the end of the day, I looked at it. I was like, did I just edit something? Did I just edit a clip? And I kind of like it. I was like, okay, well, let's put that on the list of things we can do now. Right. But I've never gone down that path until I had to, and then I did it and it kind of worked. So, just realize you can do more than you think. Um, at the end of the day, there are two motivating factors in what we do. And this is especially true in like the commercial field. First is creative expression, because first and foremost, like we're creatives. We love to create. We love to be inspired. And that's so, so very important. And that comes back to like, if you're doing something right now that you're just like, ugh, about, step out, try something new, try something different, try like refine your inspiration on it. And the second's the bottom line, because, we're trying to run a business here and we want to buy fancy new gear and all the rest of it. We want to love what we do, push and challenge ourselves creatively, but also make money from doing it. But never forget why you're doing it, right? That's very loud. We can kill the sound on that. This career has given me a beautiful life. It really has. I'm so grateful for what I've been able to achieve, the places that I've been able to go, the people that I've been able to work with. I'm so grateful for that. And, I want to look back in 10 years' time and think the same thing, or look back in 20 years' time and think the same thing. There's always going to be challenges. There's going to be younger people coming up, AI is coming for our souls. But like, just keep doing it, keep pushing forward. Don't stay in your lane, right? There's so much out there. And I've realized that, staying in your lane only gets you one way, right? And I kind of look at where I am now and, it's kind of like a multi-lane freeway. And I love that. And that excites me. And so, I thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you coming, and hopefully, this was interesting. And I want you guys to maybe set yourself a little challenge, right? And have a think about what would make you slightly uncomfortable to do. Like, what would push you outside of your comfort zone that you have either had on the list or you've been wanting to do, or maybe you really haven't been wanting to do it because it just seems too much and too daunting. It's like, maybe set yourself a challenge of going and doing that. You can do it for yourself. You don't have to do it for a client, or just set yourself a little challenge and see how it feels. And maybe it'll be a complete bust. Maybe you will fail terribly, and that's 100% okay. Or maybe you step away from it, finding something new that you love. And, the only way you're going to know is if you give it a try. All right. All right. Thank you so much.